Putin's reliance on North Korean troops to bolster his military forces is a development that has caught international observers by surprise, especially given that as of mid-2024, Russia was still recognized as a military power with substantial resources. However, after more than a year and a half of pursuing an ambitious military campaign in Ukraine, Moscow is facing a severe manpower shortage. Reports indicate that the number of Russian soldiers either wounded or demoralized in combat continues to rise, while efforts to supplement forces through prisoners, migrant laborers, or partial mobilization have failed to fill the gaps on the battlefield. Against this backdrop, Putin's turn to seek assistance from North Korea, a country with a large army but outdated equipment, and conscript soldiers who often lack real combat experience, reveals the depth of the Kremlin's desperation. Estimates range from around 10,000 to 12,000 North Korean troops said to have been deployed or are currently being deployed to the Kursk region and several other areas. However, some North Korean soldiers have reportedly defected to Ukraine before they could even fire a shot for Russia. Is this desperate alliance Putin's final mistake, one that might end up arming his own adversaries? And why would North Korea risk its resources to help Putin in the first place? This move is expected to help Russia fortify its defensive lines and bolster its offensive capabilities. Yet, contrary to Moscow's hopes, a slew of warnings from analysts suggest that such cooperation might backfire. North Korean soldiers, hailing from a closed-off society with a stagnant economy and limited battlefield experience, may fail to deliver the results Putin envisions. Furthermore, reports of North Korean soldiers defecting to Ukraine point to a double-edged sword scenario, in which Putin risks both his reputation and security. Clearly, if some North Korean soldiers are attempting to cross the front lines, could it be they recognize Ukraine's superior equipment and morale, or do they simply want to escape being cannon fodder in a foreign conflict? Whatever the reason, if this disloyalty spreads, it could deal a serious blow to Moscow's ambition to prolong the war. Now, by choosing to beg for help from one of the world's most isolated regimes, Putin is laying bare his struggles and weaknesses in maintaining military strength. And if this strategy continues to fail to yield the anticipated results, it will not only tarnish his reputation further among the Russian public, but could also turn his efforts to expand troop numbers into a grave strategic blunder. In the first half of 2024, Russia's military campaign in Ukraine entered a dark phase as Moscow encountered major strategic setbacks. One of the hardest blows was the unsuccessful assault on Kharkiv, a city of both strategic and symbolic importance. With ambitions to seize Kharkiv as a springboard for expanding its control in eastern Ukraine, Russia deployed tens of thousands of troops and advanced equipment. However, realities on the ground revealed serious miscalculations by the Kremlin. According to reports from Ukraine and Western intelligence agencies, Russia suffered up to 70,000 troop casualties in less than 2 months. The main reasons included not only fierce resistance by Ukrainian forces, but also a poorly coordinated offensive strategy and weak logistics. Many Russian soldiers faced shortages of ammunition and food and had to rely on outdated military equipment incapable of competing with the advanced weaponry provided by NATO to Ukraine. Beyond the heavy manpower losses, the failed campaign in Kharkiv also dealt a severe blow to the morale of Russian troops and placed immense pressure on Putin's government. This was not merely a military defeat. It also undermined Russia's image as a global military power. Moreover, the setback strengthened Ukraine's position and raised serious questions about Moscow's ability to sustain its military campaign going forward. According to the Kiel Institute for the World Economy, Ukraine received a total of USD 240 billion in aid from NATO from the start of the war in February 2022 until the end of August 2024, a game-changing factor on the battlefield in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. This support went beyond financial aid to include packages of advanced weapons, ammunition, and soldier training programs aimed at enhancing Ukraine's defensive and offensive capabilities against Russian aggression. A significant portion of NATO's assistance focused on modern weaponry, such as Patriot air defense systems, Leopard 2 tanks, and HIMARS rocket artillery. These assets have enabled Ukraine to effectively repel Russian airstrikes and extend its ability to launch counterattacks on multiple fronts. Large quantities of ammunition and support equipment were also provided to ensure Ukraine's forces could sustain prolonged combat operations. Additionally, NATO emphasized training Ukrainian troops, particularly in modern tactics and the operation of advanced weapon systems. Conducted in various NATO member countries, these training programs helped Ukraine quickly adapt to new combat strategies and build a more professional army. By injecting USD 240 billion in aid, NATO not only fortified Ukraine's military capabilities, but also sent a powerful message of solidarity and commitment to safeguarding European security. This weakened Russia's efforts on the battlefield and increased the Kremlin's political pressure from the international community. Ukraine's attack on Kursk stands as a clear example of the military initiative and capability of its forces, even without relying on NATO-supplied weaponry. Aiming strategically to weaken Russia's control over border areas and disperse Moscow's military forces, this operation notably broke through Russian defensive lines in the Kursk region. Though Ukraine did not deploy advanced NATO weapons systems, it made effective use of domestically produced arms and Soviet-era military hardware. These strikes mainly relied on flexible tactics, exploiting vulnerabilities in Russia's defenses. Supported by cutting-edge intelligence and reconnaissance systems, Ukraine accurately identified targets, inflicting significant losses on Russian forces. Crucially, the offensive compelled Russia to redeploy troops from other fronts, including recently arrived North Korean units, to reinforce Kursk's defenses. This shift not only relieved pressure on other contested areas, but also introduced new instability into Russia's broader strategy. By mounting an attack without relying on NATO weaponry, Ukraine has demonstrated its self-reliance and delivered a message that it is not merely an aid-dependent nation, but one capable of altering the battlefield on its own. This achievement has boosted Ukrainian troop morale and further challenged Russia in what has become a protracted conflict. Russia's slow response to Ukraine's offensives, especially in the Kursk region, has exposed major shortcomings in Moscow's military and strategic management. Rather than deploying elite or battle-tested forces, Russia has been forced to rely on poorly trained conscripts, leading to low combat effectiveness and heavy losses. Numerous reports indicate these conscript soldiers lack thorough preparation in tactics, coordination, and fighting spirit. They often find themselves on the back foot against Ukraine's swift and adaptable strikes, particularly in complex terrain like Kursk. Shortfalls in logistics, modern weaponry, and food supplies have only worsened the situation. Furthermore, the delay in making strategic decisions cost Russia the opportunity to launch a timely counterattack, allowing Ukraine to seize the initiative on the battlefield. Even the deployment of North Korean forces has not compensated for the shortcomings of conscript troops. Russia's slow response and its underqualified troops have not only undermined the country's credibility, but also drawn increasing criticism both domestically and internationally. North Korea's deployment of roughly 10,000 to 12,000 soldiers to Russia's Kursk region marks a new escalation in military cooperation between the two nations. This move is seen as an effort to reinforce Russian forces at a time when Moscow is struggling on the Ukrainian front. However, the decision has sparked concerns and heightened security tensions both regionally and globally. According to intelligence sources from Ukraine, South Korea, and the West, these North Korean troops have been sent to the border area near Ukraine. They are outfitted with Russian-made weapons, disguised in Russian military uniforms, and carry forged identification papers. Most of these soldiers are young conscripts with limited real-world combat experience. Their mission goes beyond merely providing military support. They are also tasked with shoring up Russia's defensive lines in Kursk, a region under sustained Ukrainian attack for several months. Experts, however, believe this deployment may face significant hurdles. The North Korean soldiers must operate in unfamiliar terrain under challenging logistical conditions, and they risk losing morale in the course of combat. Early reports of desertions within North Korean ranks further raised doubts about the effectiveness of this collaboration. North Korea's move not only strengthens its military ties with Russia, but also raises serious questions about the long-term impact on regional stability. Meanwhile, Western countries and South Korea have been quick to condemn the intervention, calling it a dangerous step that further complicates the conflict in Ukraine. The North Korean troops deployed to Russia, particularly to the Kursk region, are grappling with a slew of serious challenges, from inadequate training and language barriers to harsh living conditions. These factors not only diminish combat effectiveness, but also heighten the risk of low morale and desertion within their ranks. Most North Korean soldiers are conscripts who have undergone training primarily within a closed domestic environment, lacking exposure to complex combat scenarios. Faced with Ukraine's flexible tactics and advanced weaponry, these training gaps become even more apparent. Moreover, the language barrier with Russian forces poses significant coordination challenges, creating disarray and discord within mixed units. Worsening matters, poor living conditions at training camps and on the front lines make the situation increasingly dire. Reports indicate these North Korean soldiers face shortages of food and basic equipment, and often lack essential supplies. In an unfamiliar, high-stress setting, this only heightens psychological pressure and makes them more vulnerable in combat situations. Taken together, these factors don't just affect the North Korean troops' combat capabilities, they also present a substantial risk of failure for the Russia-North Korea military partnership. North Korea's decision to send thousands of soldiers to assist Russia in the Ukraine war is not merely a matter of military strategy. It reflects deeper, existential motivations for the Pyongyang regime. Chief among these is North Korea's heavy dependence on Russia for food and financial aid. North Korea has long grappled with dire economic challenges, including persistent famine, international sanctions that have isolated its economy, and severe food shortages. As an important ally, Russia has been a critical source of aid for Pyongyang, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic further crippled an already fragile North Korean economy. According to multiple reports, Pyongyang expects to receive shipments of food, fuel, and financial support in exchange for deploying its soldiers to Russia, which it views as essential for the regime's survival. Additionally, North Korea has strategic incentives to get involved in this conflict. By supporting Russia, Pyongyang not only solidifies bilateral ties but also gains an opportunity to gain real-world combat experience and test military tactics. This is especially crucial as the country seeks to boost its military capabilities amid ongoing tensions with South Korea and the United States. Nonetheless, the primary motivation remains economic survival. In a regime where every kilogram of rice carries political weight, aid from Russia helps stabilize domestic conditions and strengthen Kim Jong-un's position at home. This is the key reason Pyongyang is prepared to send troops to back Moscow, despite the risks on the Ukrainian battlefield. While Russia-North Korea relations are currently being bolstered through military cooperation and strategic benefit sharing, the plan to deploy North Korean soldiers to support Russia in the Ukraine war could prove to be a double-edged sword if it fails to meet expectations. Should the plan backfire, the relationship between the two countries may be severely damaged. From Russia's perspective, depending on North Korean troops, who are considered to have limited combat experience and face linguistic and cultural barriers, may not deliver the desired outcomes on the battlefield. If these soldiers fail to hold the line or suffer heavy losses, Moscow will likely face domestic criticism for misusing resources and further tarnishing its national image. For North Korea, a failed mission could result in the loss of promised food, fuel, and financial assistance from Russia. Moreover, if North Korean soldiers continue to desert or fail in their objectives, Pyongyang's trust in Moscow would be diminished, and Kim Jong-un's international standing could take a serious hit. In short, if troop deployment does not produce the intended results, Russia-North Korea relations could destabilize, heightening tensions and causing adverse consequences for both sides. North Korea's decision to dispatch troops in support of Russia's campaign in Ukraine is drawing strong international condemnation. By taking this action, Pyongyang is siding with one of the most significant conflicts of the 21st century and risks being labeled an aggressor. Should that occur, NATO may well choose not to remain idle. First and foremost, it must be acknowledged that North Korea's direct involvement carries serious implications. Beyond supplying manpower, Pyongyang may also provide weapons and ammunition, resources that Russia urgently needs. This puts NATO in a difficult position. Should it increase support for Ukraine to counter a threat that is becoming increasingly complex? In reality, NATO has played a vital role in supplying aid to Ukraine. Over USD 240 billion has been spent on weapons, ammunition, and training programs. However, the situation could shift now that North Korea has joined the fray. Are the defensive weapons, like HIMARS, Patriot systems, or Leopard 2 tanks, enough to halt a new escalation? Or should NATO go further, offering long-range missiles, offensive drones, and advanced tactical support systems? More importantly, North Korea's involvement could push NATO to deepen its cooperation with regional allies, such as South Korea and Japan. This is not just a European issue. It also serves as a warning sign for Northeast Asian security, as Pyongyang continues to display its military ambitions. In this context, NATO faces not only a military challenge, but also the need to send a strong message of unity and resolve in defending the international order. Any compromise might set a dangerous precedent for future conflicts. So the question arises, how will NATO respond to North Korea's escalatory actions? The answer remains to be seen, but the clock is ticking. North Korea's controversial military maneuvers, particularly its deployment of thousands of soldiers to support Russia in the war in Ukraine, not only escalate global tensions, but also place China, Pyongyang's longtime ally, in a difficult position. As a major power with substantial influence in Northeast Asia, China may be forced to reconsider its relationship with North Korea if such actions undermine regional stability. For a long time, China has acted as a patron to North Korea, providing economic aid and diplomatic backing to maintain bilateral relations. However, the military cooperation between Pyongyang and Moscow now raises the risk of escalating tensions, not just on the Ukrainian battlefield, but also in Northeast Asia, a region already sensitive to security issues. Should Pyongyang continue its actions without considering the consequences, China could worry that these moves will upset the strategic balance in the region, prompting deeper intervention from the United States and NATO. Moreover, North Korea's actions could erode China's diplomatic leverage if countries in the region, such as South Korea and Japan, strengthen security cooperation with the West in response to Pyongyang's threats. This could leave Beijing increasingly isolated within the region. In short, North Korea is treading a risky path, one that could not only strain its ties with China, but also threaten the stability of Northeast Asia. China may need to rethink its strategy toward Pyongyang in order to safeguard its long-term interests. The military cooperation between Russia and North Korea, seen as a stopgap strategy as Russia faces mounting pressures in Ukraine, carries more risks than long-term rewards. If this plan fails to deliver the desired results, it will not only damage the international reputation of both countries, but also weaken their ability to conduct current and future military operations. For Russia, relying on North Korea for additional manpower and weaponry is a clear indicator of Moscow's limitations in military strength. It undermines the image of a military power that Russia has cultivated for decades. If North Korean forces are unable to meet combat requirements or suffer heavy losses, Russia will be seen by the international community as a nation no longer capable of self-reliance. Furthermore, deploying ill-prepared and poorly coordinated troops into a complex theater like Ukraine could lead to tactical failures, eroding the confidence of any potential allies in Russia. For North Korea, its relationship with Russia presents an opportunity to bolster its international standing and secure economic benefits such as food and energy aid. However, if the troops Pyongyang sends fail to perform effectively, or if desertions continue, the regime could face criticism both at home and abroad. Desertions not only directly tarnish the reputation of North Korea's military, but also create a negative precedent that poses internal security risks to Kim Jong-un's regime. In a broader sense, if this cooperation falters, it could strain Russia-North Korea relations. Russia might scale back its support for Pyongyang, while North Korea could face further economic and diplomatic isolation. This would affect not only their military capabilities, but also increase internal instability for both nations. Ultimately, if the Russia-North Korea partnership fails to achieve the intended outcomes, it will serve as a costly lesson about the limits of tactical alliances in a complex geopolitical environment. Both Moscow and Pyongyang will pay the price, not just in terms of their international standing, but also in their ability to maintain military power in the future. Thank you for watching until the end of the video. What do you think about the relationship between Russia, North Korea, and Ukraine? Feel free to share your thoughts.